Brian Muraru is our sign language interpreter. We begin this live broadcast with the latest from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, where the Mjadala debate took place and Raila Odinga has pledged to champion Africa's representation at the United Nations Security Council by having at least 2 permanent seats with veto powers. This, Raila said, will give the continent a meaningful voice in global security matters. He also vowed to push for intra-trade among member states to break tariff barriers and promote economic growth and integration if elected as chairman of the African Union Commission. Raila spoke in a debate dubbed Mjadala Africa with his opponents of Djibouti, Mohammed Ali Yusuf, and Richard Randriamandrato of Madagascar Friday evening.
It was a showdown as 3 African Union Commission chairmanship candidates squared it out in a live televised debate dubbed Mjadala Africa at AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Raila Odinga went head-on with his 2 rivals, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf of Djibouti and Richard Randriamandrato of Madagascar. Raila vowed to push for 2 permanent seats for Africa in the United Nations Security Council, if elected, to ensure Africa has a voice in global security matters.
And the situation where you have 5 countries in the sitting in the Security Council with veto powers and Africa is not represented, a continent with 1.4 billion people, is not tenable and it's not accessible.
While criticizing international financial lenders, Raila proposed to create a pool of funds within Africa to provide low-interest loans.
African lion will begin to roar and tell its Asian tiger counterpart and the European bear and the American jaguar that this is going to be Africa's millennium.
He also emphasized the need to enhance trade within the continent as a key driver of economic growth.
The non-tariff barriers to trade that have been imposed by respective African countries, things like standards which are different from one country to the other country, making it difficult for goods to move freely across the borders.
The former Prime Minister highlighted Africa's paradox as the richest continent in resources, but the poorest in living conditions.
We need not remain for perpetually the source of raw materials for industrial west or east. That we need to do value addition to raw materials which are coming out of Africa before we export them.
The winner will require 36 votes out of the total 55, consisting of all AU member states, in elections slated for February 2025. Giverson Minor, Lunchtime News.
And that is Byron Abuli on our sign language interpretation and not Brian Muraru, as I had earlier mentioned. Moving on, the government is being urged to degazette over 30,000 hectares of the indigenous Mukogodo forest in Laikipia County into a community forest in a bid to promote conservation. Locals, led by their leaders, say the forest conversion into a community forest will see them benefit from conservation, capitalizing on their knowledge of the forest to boost its diversity and reduce human-wildlife conflict that has been exacerbated by limited natural resources. Head of Public Service Felix Koskei, who spoke during a tree planting exercise in the area, directed the local administrative unit to prepare a comprehensive report aimed at identifying gaps which arose when the vast Mukogodo forest was handed over to Kenya Forest Service.
Kama ilikuwa abadhali na ilikuwa mzuri sana community ikisimamia, tutafanya vile vile inatakikana ili hiyo forest isije ikuje iharibike kwa sababu watu wale wanaishi karibu naye wamekatazwa watunze.
It can be best conserved when it is managed by the community, na kwa hivyo tunaomba ya kwamba ikuwe degazetted, irudishiwe wananchi waweze kuhifadhi.
The handing over of 5,616 bed-sitter units at the Mukuru Kwanjenga Social Housing Project will now start in April 2025. Lands and Housing Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahome, who visited the site, said initial plans to hand over the houses to the public this December had been beset by court cases. She visited the project in the company of Gambian President Adama Barrow, who was in the country for benchmarking. Mukuru Kwanjenga is the biggest single housing project being developed by the government, comprising of 13,248 housing units.
Our targets are slightly behind schedule because we intended to have within the first year 200,000. But of course, you know the challenges we faced of court cases, litigation, and uncertainty in terms of whether the funding will be stopped by the court. But now I want to thank Kenyans and even the people who are still remaining in court, appeal to them to join the rest of the country to provide affordable housing to Kenyans.
We are very impressed with what we have seen. With this housing, I think it's a very important project. All segments of society are catered for. So we have land, and we will go back to the Gambia, discuss with our technicians, see how best we can implement, because we are also thinking of implementing 10,000 houses.
The Cabinet Secretary for Health, Dr. Deborah Baraza, has called on hospitals to embrace and provide services under the Social Health Authority, emphasizing its potential to revolutionize healthcare delivery in Kenya. The CS asked hospitals to collaborate with national government administration officers and community health promoters to support and ensure the success of the program.
Speaking during the launch of a mass drug administration exercise in Malava, Kakamega County, Cabinet Secretary for Health, Deborah Baraza, urged the public to disregard negative social media trends about the Social Health Authority.
For our politicians, let us not be the ones saying shisha show. We are the ones who should be supporting this great agenda so that our people, the needy, the vulnerable, the poor in the community can be able to access the very same services that the rich people do.
Defending the medical scheme, Baraza said the funds collected under the Facility Improvement Act will enhance the quality of services at all levels of medical facilities.
Watu wajisajili, waende kwa mahospitali, waonekane, ndio pesa iletwe, alafu madawa yatakuja, madaktari watakuja, na services zitaendelea kukua mzuri.
We'll ensure that Kakamega, through Mheshimiwa Penina, we register under SHA. Tunataka hospitali zetu zipate benefit, kwa sababu ukitibiwa hapa, pesa itarudi hapa Malava, pesa itatoka hapa iende Murang'a. So register hapa, pesa hiyo italeta equipment hapa Malava.
2 months after the official launch of the medical scheme, SHA, a section of Kenyans, including inmates, are still facing hurdles in the registration process. These are some of the complaints at the Bungoma prisons.
They are not allowed to have their phones. So some of them have their IDs, but they don't have phones. That is why we have a problem with registration. But we have escalated the problem and we have written a letter to the SHA. So we are waiting for a feedback so that they can take up the matter.
And Kilifi County Governor Gideon Mungaro has urged residents to register in mass in the Social Health Insurance Fund so that they can benefit from free medical services in all health centers and dispensaries across the county.
Kila mtu analipiwa 900 na serikali. Usipoandikisha hizo pesa sitazipata, wenyewe mkija hapa mnataka mtibiwe bure. Na zahanati zetu zote zitakuwa bure.
Na hujui wewe utapata ajali ama utakuwa mgonjwa siku gani. Ni kama vile mtu anaendesha gari ama pikipiki, weke insurance, ukipata ajali inasimamiwa. Hivyo ndio tunataka kuhakikisha kwamba wananchi wa Kilifi wako covered.
Mungaro was speaking during the launch of 2 dispensaries, Mtangani Dispensary in Sabaki Ward, Magarini Sub-County, and Mkaumoto Dispensary in Ganda Ward, Malindi Sub-County. Kasichana Masha, Lunchtime News.
Still on that health bit, in Kisii County, residents of Ibeno Ward have been urged to register for the Social Health Insurance Fund to access quality healthcare services. Speaking during a free medical camp in the area, the ward representative Steve Arika lauded the door-to-door shift registration campaign to ensure more Kenyans benefit from the new health insurance scheme.
Serikali imesema watu wajiregister na SHA, na mimi kama Steve area MCA siwezi pinga, kwa vile hiyo ni sheria iko, ni kuona vile wakonge na kuna wale wanalipwa mwezi wa mwezi, wale wamepitisha miaka 70, ni kuongea na familia sawa, ama wale wanawatunza waone kama wamekuwa registered, kwa vile inakuwa rahisi kwao.
Now, 26-year-old Mary Wanjiku Muthoni has been stuck at the Kenyatta University Teaching Referral Hospital for the past 5 months since August 13th. She was admitted and diagnosed with pneumonia, lung and chest infections, gastritis and ulcers, and has been unable to leave the hospital due to unpaid medications.
Mary's prolonged stay has not only taken a toll on her mental health, but also kept her from caring for her young child. Confined to her ward, she is even restricted from stepping outside to enjoy the sunlight. Her medical bills continue to increase as she stays stuck in the hospital. She is now appealing to well-wishers for financial assistance to settle her medical bills and regain her freedom. Her medical bill now stands at 477,240 Kenya shillings.
I'm in Kenyatta University Teaching Referral Hospital. I was admitted on 13th of August. I was later discharged on 30th of August, and my bill was 166,000. I was unable to pay my bill because of my financial problems. Now, till date, on December, this is my 5th month, my bill is 466,000. I'm still unable to pay my bill because of my financial problems. Please, well-wishers, friends, anyone outside there who can help me, please, may this video reach you, and I plead, please, if anyone outside there can help me, please hear my cry. Please, help me. Thank you. God will bless you.
For Lunchtime News, I'm Rodney Mbua.
And as cases of gender-based violence and femicide continue to rise, human rights advocates are pushing for the punishment of perpetrators, even as they encourage women to speak out and use their voices to inspire the change they wish to see.
You can imagine if she has achieved that.
During a colorful event in Nairobi dubbed the Woman of Love and Prayer Gala, women from different counties converged to address the challenges they face in their roles as wives, parents, and entrepreneurs. The event, which ran under the theme Proverbs 31 Woman, was graced by Cabinet Secretary for Lands Alice Wahome, who condemned the acts of gender-based violence.
We have to speak and speak loud. We have to publicize the good things about us. We have to refuse and reject the spirit of violence and conflict in our families. And we have to spread that to the rest of the neighborhood, the communities that we live in, because one of the reasons gender-based violence does not end is silence.
Love Basket founder Reverend Eva C.W. reiterated the importance of empowering women in society to enhance their financial, social, and mental well-being.
We have been going through a lot of empowerment forum for these women, financial literacy, because a lot of women, they are going through abuse because they are financially dependent. So what we are doing as Women of Love and Prayer is bringing these women out of that hiding and hurting, coming up with a way that we can train them to be more resourceful, and also healing, mentorship through counseling and all that.
Diana Kamande, a survivor of gender-based violence, emphasized the importance of introducing awareness campaigns at an early age for children raised in toxic families.
It's time we tell our young generation, we tell our children that it's not okay to normalize violence, because most of us were brought up by parents who had normalized violence. Can we introduce the anti-GBV clubs in schools where children can go and speak about this openly. Why are we waiting until our children get into it and then we are starting to tell them it is wrong?
You know, women make leaders.
Bishop John C.W. said men too have a responsibility in curbing GBV and femicide.
We are here to push the narrative that the woman has a place and it's not a competition. You know, men sometimes tend to forget. There is no man that is not born by a woman. So men, your power is not in putting the woman down. In fact, your power is in raising the woman that you need to have the next generation have a seed that will impact a generation to the glory of God.
For Lunchtime News, I'm Christine Matunda.
Elsewhere, Alternative Providers of Basic Education and Training Schools Association want the government to accord them more time to comply with the set registration guidelines of adequate staffing and improved facilities. Addressing UPBET school directors in Kajiado County, Dr. Moses Wakono, the national chairperson of UPBET Schools Kenya, underscored the significant role of UPBET institutions as viable alternatives in improving access to basic education, especially in marginalized areas and informal settlements.
We want to work together to make sure all the schools which by meet the registration standards are fully registered. To this, that the government can still work with us and give us guidance as we also as an association develop mechanisms of self-regulation.
Time for your sporting action, and Real Valladolid moved from the bottom of the La Liga table after beating Valencia 1-0 in the only La Liga match played last night. Valladolid now sit 19th on 12 points, 2 above Valencia, who have 2 matches in hand.
Valencia replaced Valladolid at the bottom of the table after winning just 2 games in 15 league matches played last night.
The header is flicked on and in.
That's all the time we had for you this Saturday afternoon. Time for me to exit the ground for Game On. Amfa Apidi is already on the other side of studio to give you the very latest in matters sports. This has been Lunchtime News. I'm Doreen Arange. Byron Abuli has been our sign language interpreter. Good afternoon.
High School Mission and Ministry has become one of the most effective when it comes to evangelism and salvation. But the dynamics are shifting.
Music is becoming an entry or a point of entry into some of the beliefs, changing the way they believe and the way they do things.
We are dealing with a very smart generation, very exposed.
Very.
The ordinary evangelism may not work.
If we can have parents take up their responsibility in teaching the word of God. For those of us, some of the challenges we are having are children of believers.
These are people who are paving the way for female comedians who are winning our hearts and cracking our ribs one show at a time.
I'm a stand-up comedian full-time, but I'm also a screenwriter and a producer at times.
I am a stand-up comedian and I do leather design.
I'm an AWS, Amazon Web Services, solutions architect.
And then of course,
I'm a stand-up comedian. It's hard to explain to my mom I've been fired when I was barely working.
I know.
Yeah.
Just every setback, you know, can definitely be a new beginning for you.
And for a very long time, I would like to make my brothers laugh. I didn't even know there's something like stand-up comedy.
Things that were happening, and that's when my family started calling me a ray of sunshine, you know, like you bring cheer and joy. And I was like, let's take this to the stage.
I hope that more women are encouraged to get into comedy.
It is official. Ruth Chemngetich becomes the first lady to run a sub 2:10 in the World Cup, in the world, marathon, because she's one of the ladies this week that World Athletics ratified their world records. She ran 2 hours 9 minutes 0.56. At the same time, Beatrice Chebet's world record also ratified by World Athletics. Congratulations to the two ladies, officially world record holders in the two sporting disciplines. In the same week that we also saw Hussein Mohamed get to the top of Football Kenya Federation matters. Of course, now we have a new sheriff in town in terms of Hussein Mohamed, deputized by McDonald Mariga, the former footballer, in terms of being at the top of the Football Kenya Federation. So we are wishing them all the best as they start up at the very week that we also saw Harambee Stars coach Engin Firat, resign as the Harambee Stars manager. A lot to talk about. Good afternoon and welcome wherever you're joining us from. It's been a very, very busy week. In fact, from all that we've seen, a lot has been happening, and all we can do is sit back and relax. In a week that we also saw Gor Mahia slip a bit in their title defense, held by Shabana in midweek matches. Congratulations, because Shabana seems to be getting the confidence day in, day out. We are looking at very interesting times. At the same time, we have the East Africa Legislative Assembly games happening in Mombasa at the moment. Mombasa, thank you for your hospitality. A lot been happening from that front, and we'll be talking much about it as we also keep an eye on what's been making headlines from that point of view. Last weekend, Chepsaita came down with lots and lots of prizes up for grabs. We saw athletes through the Chepsaita cross-country championship coming out in Uasin Gishu County. Lots to talk about from that front, as we also saw the curtains coming down on the Formula One season, where we saw Max Verstappen win another championship to become the four-time world Formula One champion. Congratulations to Max Verstappen. For the other teams, it's about living to fight another day, as we also saw a very good and glittering career period come to an end for Lewis Hamilton from Mercedes. As we all know, Lewis Hamilton officially not a Mercedes driver anymore, moving over to Ferrari. We'll have to wait and see how that unfolds in the next Formula One season, because it promises to be interesting. Lewis Hamilton will be partnering with Charles Leclerc, as we also see George Russell trying to get in a new pairing from a Mercedes point of view. Red Bull continues with the dominance with Max Verstappen, but the new kids on the block from a manufacturer's point of view, McLaren, led by Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, will be no pushovers as well. Lots to talk about from that front as we look at the footballing scene. Arsenal didn't have a good run, many would say, because they dropped points, but in the midweek they bounced back, beating Monaco by 3-0 as Manchester City also won their game, but again faltered midweek, where they drew in the Champions League. Liverpool, Chelsea continuing with some good runs. Madrid, lots to talk about for Barcelona, sleeping, Madrid winning. A lot to talk about from a football point of view. We have so much lined up for you in store this afternoon. We'll be talking about hockey, we'll be talking about football. Guests are in studio and we are ready to take them through what's making them tick, because the big trophies are also here with them as evidence that indeed wherever they go, they are the lions and they are the lionesses in this kingdom. We'll be talking about that shortly with a very excited team already in studio. But for now, as is the norm of the show, we start off with a score to just get a glimpse of how events unfolded both locally and across the borders. My name is